Tick tack, it's my clock telling me I should get up. I should get up.
Hi, and welcome to The Conscious Loop, where woo-woo and the real world collide. I'm your host, Katrina DeAngelis. Join me as we explore what it looks like to live consciously almost always. Each episode, we dive into transforming mindsets and shifting paradigms through topics such as developing self-awareness, living authentically, communication, strengthening relationships, and leading from the inside out. If you're ready to break out of your unconscious loops and discover what else is possible, you came to the right place. You ready? Let's dive in. Today I have guest expert and speaker Irina Posan. She is an amazing HR industry leader who has over 15 years of experience and has now turned that career into really continuing to pursue her passion in supporting other women and aspiring leaders make the next career move or really the next jump in their career and in their journey in following their dreams. So listen in to really dive into some juicy details around the secret sauce that really has supported Irina in creating success throughout her career and what she uses and now supports other people on as well. We'll dive into tips and things that she recommends, common challenges and unconscious loops that she had to undo, as well as what she supports her clients on also undoing. We also dive into an early career conversation that her and I had and how some of our old mindsets and traditional mindsets really just play a role in shaping how we show up and how we can begin to unravel that so that we can jump into and propel into the next version of our success. Irina also talks about her own journey with her health and shares some really vulnerable stories on how you can really bridge the woo-woo and reality to create the outcomes that you want to see. I am so excited, Irina, to have you here on the podcast. I'm going to have you introduce yourself a little bit more in a second, but I just wanted to first say thank you so much for coming and let everyone listening know that Irina is not only an amazing HR leader, but she has been at the corner of really my career throughout the last 10 years since I've known her. She is now a career and leadership coach with a personal mission to empower ambitious women in HR to really achieve their career aspirations. And I'm super excited to dive into some of her expertise and her personal stories so that you can learn from her journey as well. So I want to welcome Irina to the
Thank
show.
you, Katrina. I'm so excited to be here and to talk to you. It's always a pleasure. And yeah, just reminiscing over the last 10 years and all that's happened. It's been amazing to see you grow in your career and do amazing things. So I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. It's wild to think how much time has really gone by and how much has happened over the last decade. And so let's jump in right there. You know, you've been in HR for 15 years in various roles and capacities. So tell us a little bit about yourself and some of your big career moments that really stick out to you.
Absolutely. So, oh man, I've been in HR for almost 15 years now, like you said, and in so many different roles at three different organizations, from very general roles to all aspects of HR. And I would say in the last 3, 4 years, I've really developed a huge passion for talent specifically and went into that full force. So I'm happy to be in talent now and pursuing leadership and coaching.
Amazing. And tell us about, I know that we've spoken before about a few really big decisions that you've had to make throughout your career that really, I mean, had you had made another decision would have led you down a completely different path. And so what were those big decisions like for you and what helped you make them?
Great question. When you approached me about this podcast, it really caught my attention because of the unconscious loops that you're talking about. So, I think of so many different pivotal moments in my career where, I felt the fear and pursued my goals anyway. And those are the ones that really stick out. I remember being in my 20s and landing what I believed was like my dream job at the time. I was a first time manager at an enterprise sized company here in Canada. And I was so excited about the opportunity. Like I came into work every day just thrilled that, they would have me. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is such a dream. And just coming in with that energy of excitement. And about a year later, I was approached about a really exciting opportunity to be promoted to a senior leadership role. And I remember just hearing this, and it felt like it came out of nowhere. And my first reaction was imposter syndrome and fear, and thinking, like, I'm so happy with my role. Like, where is this coming from? And I remember just having a lot of different thoughts, and I thought about turning it down. So I had a further conversation with the director at the time. We went for lunch and we were just talking about the role. I was learning more. And what I thought she didn't know at the time was that I was also pregnant. So I was 1 month pregnant. It was very new, I was kind of on the cusp of change. And this was a big decision. I just remember specifically being afraid of balancing work and family, especially in a more senior role, and just having fears around this. And I'm thankful that I was transparent about that. And I spoke to her, and she was a mom herself. And the advice she gave me was, she really encouraged me to take it. And she was a mom, and I felt heard. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. And I was honest and told her about where I am. And she said, I already knew that. And women have to support women. Right. And that really, really sticks with me throughout my career. And I just think, like, that was such incredible and pivotal advice for me.
Mhm, mhm.
It changed my career. And I'm so glad I took that opportunity. And now at this point, working with HR women and getting them to their next level in their career, this is like sharing advice that I wish I had at the time earlier in my career with these women. So it's full circle. But
I love that. Yeah, it really comes full circle to one of your key moments early in your career, right? And I think it just talks so much to the importance of finding your champions, like finding those people that are going to support you, who are going to, lift you up that not like turn up one notch on your confidence and really support you in seeing something that maybe at the time you can't see for yourself because of your limiting beliefs, or whatever it is, that the stories that are holding you back from having, from taking that opportunity or from making a really big decision. And something else that comes up there is, gone are the days when there's this like scarcity mindset around leadership, and where everyone is out on their own and to each their own to figure it out and like climb the corporate ladder and all those sorts of things that, might have been the case 10 to 15 to 20 years ago. And so some of those mindsets and some of those ways of being in leadership are completely changing. And this is such a beautiful example of that. Like, she wanted to lift you up. She wanted you to be in that next position, and she was willing to hold that mirror for you to be able to see that for yourself. And now you get to do that for like hundreds of women as well. And so you mentioned a few things: work-life balance. There was the limiting belief piece. And we always say you coach younger versions of yourself. And so I'm curious now, so many years later and working with clients, what are some of the really common unconscious loops that you help your clients undo so that they can take that next step in their career?
yeah, that's a great question. I see the same few things come up no matter who I'm speaking to. It's so interesting through the intake process, getting to know someone and understanding, where they are, where they'd like to be, kind of the gaps. And what I hear a lot more than I think I expected, especially working with women, is mindset. Mindset is everything. And just that belief in themselves and not being able to see it sometimes. And also confidence. So, confidence in approaching new opportunities, confidence to even apply for roles when they may not meet like all of the qualifications, right? And some scarcity mindset, like you mentioned as well, around money and, believing that you can't earn great money in HR, which is definitely a limiting belief. I know we often go into HR because we really want to help people, but I believe in abundance in all areas of life, and just helping people see those things for themselves as well has been very, very interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, with the mindset piece, we believe to be possible what we've seen possible, right? And so a lot of times we have these limiting beliefs because maybe we've never seen anyone making the money we want to make in an HR position, or maybe that's what we think, right? We don't always know the answer. We make these assumptions based on what we see and based on what we think we know, rather than looking for information to maybe confirm otherwise. And so let's talk a little bit about that, because we had a really interesting conversation before we started the podcast on early on in my career. We had a really big conversation because I was applying for HR roles, and I was kind of on the fence about, like, is this the right thing? I really want to go into leadership. And, you know, we had at the time, and even now reflecting back, it was a really powerful conversation that was able to kind of get me thinking and really push me in the right direction. But it's interesting reflecting back with now all the
Yes.
years of experience that you have, and looking back on that and saying, huh, like, would have I still said the same thing now with this expanded mindset? So tell me a little bit about that when you reflect back.
Oh my goodness. So I was just remembering that today. And, I remember 10 years ago sitting in this restaurant across from you and you saying, and I had like a few more years of experience in a
Yeah.
very junior HR role at the time. And you just saying, I'm also just graduated, I landed my first offer. I'm really struggling with accepting it. I don't feel like it's the right one. I don't feel like the company's right. And you were going into all of these details, and you were really expressing your passion for leadership. Like, I remember that so clearly. And it's so amazing to see what you're doing now and following your passion. But I remember at the time just thinking, Katrina, I gave you very practical advice. I was like, Katrina, you don't have another offer. And, to get that leadership experience, go take it, get your foot in the door, prove success, kill it. And then, you'll be given the right opportunity with that, right? With gaining the experience. Cause at the time, I think I was approaching that conversation with my own experience, which was, did I land my dream job right out the gate? So, my first job, I supported a manufacturing team, and everyone there, I could have been their grandchild. So, everyone was a very different age. I just didn't feel like I fit in. And there with my little blazer, and like one of my first assignments was sorting through hundreds of pieces of paper and filing them in a cabinet. Okay. And I was so
Roll, I
excited.
don't know.
Amazing role, dream role. And I approached it like, I am a hardworking person. I'm going to kill it. I'm going to file these papers better than anyone has ever filed papers before. And then I can move on to my dream job. Right. And because I think I approached my career that way, with having, and it's probably the like immigrant mentality that I was raised around, and seeing my parents having to work so hard, like physically, and, just really it being challenging to land a job. I think I gave you advice from that perspective, thinking like, listen, I just have to file papers for like months. So you need to accept this offer and then, move into leadership down the line. But I'm so glad that you didn't really take that advice and did pursue leadership sooner without having to do that wildly aggressive physical work.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's so amazing. I'm so happy that you brought that up, because it's also one of those moments that it's like the aha moment of, wow, like, I forgot that I was even so strong-willed back then
Yes, you
in
were.
this direction.
Yes.
Um, you often forget about how far you've come, or some of the big decisions that you had to make along the way. And honestly, I forgot about that decision. And that was obviously a big decision at the time to
Turn
turn
down
down.
your first offer out
I
of
turned down my
school.
first
That's
offer,
a
and
risk.
Yeah.
right?
Wow.
That's the risk.
And you bring up such a good point about the mindset piece and also the generational aspect. And there were so many things that you said there. There's this if this then that mentality, right? Like
Yes.
if I file these papers amazing, then I'm going to get the
Yes.
my dream job. And so it's like we think that we have to sacrifice or suffer so that you are almost like deserving of the thing that you actually desire. And I think that shows up in more than just work. It shows up in relationships. It shows up in, you know, personal life, friendships, like everything. There's always this like, if I just do this, if I'm just a good enough partner, if I'm just a good enough friend, then like I'll deserve this. And I've seen that come up multiple times with other people. And so I love that you had said that and there's this awareness around it. And also how the generational aspect plays a role because I'm sure you see this with your clients with the money mindset piece. We build our money mindsets based on how we were raised. So if we saw it was really hard to make money, if we saw it you have to work so many hours to make money, and some of the pieces you had mentioned about, you know, having immigrant parents and some of the things that your parents would have gone through, that impacts you even in an entirely different situation with different resources, you're still acting from that place of what served them back then. Looking back on how much has changed from that first conversation to now, so much has happened. And I just wanna also say one more thing, because I think people get advice like this all the time. It's not bad advice. It's practical and it's what's worked for a large number of people, which is why people give practical advice. And just because one thing works doesn't mean that there's not another way. And so now you've kind of like had 10 years of experience to see all these other ways that things actually can work and really broken down so many of the previous mindsets that were driving you. And so, what are some of those big key mindset shifts and unconscious loops that have truly transformed your life, whether personal, work related, whatever comes to mind, but like key things that have really just transformed your life? I call it like the woo woo that we weave into our reality.
Mindset. Yeah, there's so much there that I kind of want to touch on. So I think what we just talked about is a huge shift for me. And it's coming up now as you're saying it this way. So following your passion, right? So really being following what you love to do and success will follow. I think that's a huge shift from that first conversation that we had, right? And now that is something that I really resonate with, right? And it came with, I think for me, trying all of the different aspects of HR and seeing what I really loved the most. And what I noticed was I was really, really lit up working on leadership development and talent and getting people to that next level. And then pursuing that full force and just knowing that that would be what ultimately is the most fulfilling. So I think that that's been a huge mindset shift for me. Um,
Which is really that's like moving from that, like, if this, then that mentality, like, I
yes.
have to put in this to deserve this, to I can just follow what feels good and what lights me up and trust that that's going to bring me the next opportunity, which
Yes.
it
And
has.
knowing it'll work out. Like if you are doing that, that will definitely work out. Where that first conversation, I couldn't see what you saw. Like I couldn't see that you following your passion would result in career success at the time. Because for me, I was like, well, you need to check the box of experience first, right? Before if then, and then you could follow your passion. So I think, yeah, knowing what I know now, probably would have done that earlier in my career. Like I waited almost a decade to get into what really, 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 truly lit me up.
Mhm.
Uh, right. So yeah, I think that's interesting. And in terms of the daily woo, I mean, when you told me the concept of this, I was so excited because I love the woo side. I feel like this is something I really, really lean into just naturally on a daily basis in so, so many different ways. And I also consider myself really business minded. So it's kind of like this secret sort of weapon that I feel like I lean on to achieve my business goals.
Like
And
the
some
one
of,
people can't see it from the outside, but you're like,
yes,
I know what helped.
yeah, I know how to do this. And it's the little thing of like before we started, you saying we have an extra 5 minutes and taking that 5 minutes to meditate. Right. So meditation is a huge thing that I lean on. It's one of those tools for me that gives me a lot of clarity. And I know when meditation is in my daily practice, I know it creates more time for me.
Yeah.
I know that I get that time back. Daily goal setting. I love journaling. I could spend hours just like introspectively thinking and writing. And I think another one, which is probably the most woo woo, I would say, is visualization.
Mhm.
In my, when I do meditate, I often will visualize, my goals, what I'd love to attract. And I'm huge on this. And it's really, really worked in so many different ways. And this is kind of like my secret weapon that I
Mhm. I'm so excited. I'm like on the edge of my chair because I'm like, yes, I want to talk more about this because I know not just, I mean, from personal experience, of course, but just some of the things that you've shared with me about how visualization and manifesting has just created such amazing outcomes for you. And I think there's this gap between, and that's why I love this conversation and this topic because it's like we're bridging this kind of like woo woo spiritual, like, okay, go be a hippie on the beach with like
Yeah.
the corporate reality of day-to-day life and how it can actually serve you because they are so complementary to one another. They're not two separate things. And so you're such a good example of that because I know you, I've seen you, like you are so professional, you're so driven, you have such big dreams and you go after them and you make them happen. But from an outsider's perspective, you don't fit this like narrative of just like, oh, like Irina meditating on the beach all
No.
day and, like, in silent retreats. Like, there's this, like, image that, I would like to break down. And so if you would be open to sharing some of the ways you've manifested different things in your life, in your health, or in your career, or whatever comes up, because I heard a quote the other day, and it was something along the lines of, "You can't build a dream that you can't first imagine."
Yes.
So, you can't work towards something or have a goal if you can't imagine it. So, if we're just, day to day being guided by what's in front of us, we're not going to get anywhere because there's no bigger vision. And so, sometimes there's things that come up that kind of force us into revisioning and really coming up with what we want to bring to life. And sometimes it's just driven by our desires and our goals and our aspirations for life. And so I'm curious some of the ways that you've used visioning and manifesting in your personal
Yeah,
and professional life.
absolutely. I would love to share. The first thing that you say that like you may not be able to see this from the outside with me. And I have like a reaction when you say like Irina going on a silent retreat, even though I would love that more than anything. No one would think that that is what I would go and do. Although it really is like a private part of me. And I guess it's that fear of like judgment. Like I feel so comfortable speaking to you because this is a topic you're so passionate about. And that's the reason you have this podcast, right? So yeah, it's interesting. I have to kind of think more on the reason why it is such a private part of my life. But oh my goodness, visualization is everything.
I would say from private to secret sauce.
Secret sauce, yes,
Secret
very secret.
sauce. Yeah.
Well, it's now out there. When I do have a big dream, which happens a lot, if I can't see it, then I know it's not my dream. And I will like meditate on it. If I can't actually see it in my mind as a reality already, I just know that it's not for me. And there have been so many key moments of things that have happened in my life where I saw them first through visualization in meditation, like just silent. And then when that happens, I know for a fact that it will be coming into reality, right? This is something that will be, it's already mine, right? And I'm able to kind of let go and just wait for it to kind of happen. But I mean, I have manifested my dream job without applying to it. So I had someone reach out to me, an executive recruiter, at the exact time I had the idea, and I really defined exactly the role that I wanted, and it wasn't available within my current organization. And I had an executive recruiter reach out saying, "Hey, would you love this director of talent role?" And I was like, "Yes, I could, yes." Like, this is exactly what I've been looking for. And it happened. But I think there are so many other examples, but you mentioned health. This is like I share this with only the closest friends and family, but I'd love to share it here. I'm a cancer survivor, and I was diagnosed with cancer fairly recently. And to cope with that very stressful kind of situation, I did a lot of meditating, right? So I went into those secret sauce tools, and my friends and family were like, "Wow, you're so positive. You're so optimistic about it." And it's because I was really meditating on perfect health,
Mhm.
and I could see it. So I could see like growing old, I could see being healthy. And sorry, it's like a big, big thing. Um,
No, like I'm first of all, I have goosebumps and shivers because I'm just like so appreciative that you're even sharing it. And I think there's so many things that you're saying that are so important. And one is the people see what's on the outside. So your friends
yes,
and family saying, wow, you're so positive or you're so this or you're so that. They're seeing the outcome of the
yes,
work that you put into it.
yes.
And I think that's such an
I told
important
them,
thing. Yeah.
I told them I'm spending like an hour in silence a day meditating. They'd be like, "Whoa, okay, we're concerned."
Yeah,
Right?
right?
But
Which
they
is like
only see the outer, the peace and like the way that I'm approaching the situation. Oh my goodness. So this is interesting. So in my meditations, when I was picturing perfect health, what I kept seeing is like flowers on a vine blooming. Okay. And that's what I kept seeing. And I was visualizing over and over, and I didn't know why. And I had to go for a CAT scan to check the status of my cancer. And as I'm like laying down into the machine, I look up at the Newmarket Hospital, and in the CAT scan room, they have a like a painted glass window on the
mhm.
ceiling,
Yep. I'm
and it
blanking,
is
but I know it yep.
stained glass.
Stained glass, yes,
Stained glass,
yeah.
yes. So they have a stained glass window above the CAT scan. So as
Mhm.
you're laying down and about to go into the machine to test, the status of your cancer, it is a picture of blooming flowers on vines.
Wow.
So seeing that, I knew, I was like, I'm in perfect health. Like I just know this. And it's something that really gave me just the knowing that
Mm,
what I was seeing in that visualization was a reality.
wow.
And it was. So of course my scans came back clear. Here we are.
Oh my gosh, wow, thank you so much for sharing that. I think there's so much trust that goes into that. Trust in yourself, trust in your vision, trust in what you're seeing, because I think that's the thing too, right? Sometimes visualization is not always it's a part of visioning what you can see for yourself and the future that you are going to create and you're going to step into. But then there's a piece that is trusting that some of the elements of what you're seeing are not there for no reason. Because sometimes we can be in meditation and see like the most random thing, like a bird or, like stepping stones. Like there's these weird things that you see that you can't make sense of at the time. But rather than pushing it aside as like, okay, whatever, that was just like something that
With
I
the
saw.
faith.
Yeah, it's having the faith, it's trusting yourself, and it's being tuned in and aware of those signs because coming even full circle back to what you said about even like visioning your dream job.
Yes.
Part of it was visioning it, knowing that it's available to you, but then also every single moment during the day, you're tuned into that energy, you're tuned into that vision, so you're gonna make decisions from that place.
Yes.
You're gonna speak from that place. You're gonna
You
look
be ready.
seek opportunities, be ready.
Yes.
And it's the same thing with your health, like, each moment is a decision that you make from that place of perfect health, like, I'm in perfect health, that is the frequency that you're in, and so it's like being
What would
that
a
now.
person in perfect health do?
Yeah.
Well, I'm probably gonna drink something green and go for a workout, right? And you're right, living every moment in that way. And I mean, that job opportunity didn't come my way for no reason. No, I had, set goals around this. I was very clear about what I wanted.
Mhm.
I optimized my LinkedIn with all of those words of,
Yeah.
what someone would be focused on for that. So, it's beautiful how things unfold in that way once you're in the right frequency.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
also have to be taking action,
Yeah.
right? It's those goals and not just leaving it all to spiritual things to kind of unfold. I think it's so powerful when you blend the two together
Yeah.
and you're approaching your goals from the right energy.
Mhm.
And then
That's the
things
secret sauce. It's like plugging them together. It's having the vision, having, manifesting, but then clear and direct action from that place. And again,
yes,
people only see the action. And action, you can look at somebody who like might be taking a lot of action, but it's not in any clear direction, right? So they're not going to probably move throughout their career in the way that you have, even though they're taking action. And then you see the people who are like, I'm just gonna vision and meditate and like things will
yes.
happen. And if they're not taking action from that place, it's also probably not gonna happen. So that
Yeah,
secret
very
is
unlikely.
the merging, right, of those two worlds and the intention and the vision and the action and direction, which you are the perfect example of that. And you're such a, amazing case for success in bridging those two together. And I really find it so interesting too that you mentioned a few times, oh, like when I hear you say sitting at a silent retreat, like, something comes up for
Oh,
you, but at the same time, you're like, I would love that. And then
I
there
would.
yeah, and then you're like, I sit and meditate for
That's
an
how
hour,
I
but if I
think.
told my family that, they'd be like, what is going on with you? So it's this interesting thing where it's like the very thing that is the secret sauce and that helps us and that you've even mentioned has helped you so many times is also the very thing that we feel weird about or ashamed about.
Why do you think
Um,
it is? Is it not like accepted? Why do you think that is? Because I know you're someone who leans into spirituality very openly.
mhm,
It's this
mhm.
podcast, right? And I have seen you on retreats, which is amazing. I wish I was
Yeah.
there.
You know,
So you're
it is
so such a free spirit, right?
yeah.
So tell me about that. Like, why do you think that is?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think as with so many things in life, stereotypes and assumptions play a role. So it's like we put these things in boxes and
Mhm.
then it's harder to imagine them outside of that box. So it's like I struggled with this early in my career where I was super driven, working with a lot of corporate clients in the leadership space or consulting space. But then I had this side of me that was like free spirit, traveling the world, dancing barefoot on the sand. The two just didn't match. And I didn't want the two groups to even know that the other existed. You
I
know, I
relate
was,
to that so much. From
yeah,
another we're different, but I relate to that so much.
yeah.
Like,
And I,
if my boss, the CHRO,
yeah.
found out that I got the job through visualization, he would also think I'm sorry, he would think I'm nuts. He'd be like, "No, you didn't. You were the most qualified candidate that I called."
Oh my gosh, I love that. Yeah, he's like, "No, you got it because you did the work." But that's the thing, right? It's the merging of those 2. I think we should send him the podcast and get his feedback. But I think it's blending the 2 and also what I've for myself personally, I found it the more that I merge the 2 together, it just helped me feel more authentic in myself and comfortable with who I was. So now I can say, you know, more weird or woo-woo things in a very corporate environment that originally I might have been like, "Oh my gosh, I can never say that." But I started testing it out. I just started testing it out in small ways, and you start to also realize that a lot of people say similar things in different ways, right? When we talk about mindset, that's something that's pretty accepted, right? In a
Mhm.
more corporate environment, that your mindset plays a role in how you interpret situations, how you show up, and all these types of things. And so I just start to find language that works for people. And I would say, even though, you're the CEO or something might think you're nuts for being like, I manifested this opportunity. I think that in other ways, these are the things that you work with your clients as well. So I think the only thing that's different is that it's the secret sauce that people are less willing to try, but when they do try, they realize it works and they actually use it. I think there's just a fear of maybe fully embodying certain things because of the fear of the judgment, because people have an assumption that if you're visualizing or trying to manifest, then yeah, you must be
You
having
must
a
not be
midlife
good at
crisis or a
business.
quarter life crisis and you're yeah, gonna
You probably
go
don't care
like
about the
live a palace.
finances or right? There's like either or
Yeah, very
kind
much
of
either or thinking. And so that's exactly honestly why this podcast came to be, is really bridging those two worlds. And so I'm so appreciative of you for being here and being willing to have the conversation, as someone who is super successful and who has created that path for themselves in their career and now helps other people do that. I think it's just so important to hear from people who are doing it and also who help other people do that as well. And actually, maybe that's the question we can end on as well, Irina, is when you think about the ways in which bringing the woo woo into your real world has really helped you, and some of the common unconscious loops that we've spoken about that you see with your clients, what are like one or two takeaways or pieces of advice for our listeners who are looking either to make a career transition, or maybe it's just like get the next promotion, or just make a big and bold decision in the direction of their dreams? What would be one or two words of wisdoms or tips that you might want to give people?
yeah, I love that. I think of mindset. We've been talking about mindset a lot. And, we all have so many negative thoughts a day. So we have like 70,000 thoughts every single day, most of which are negative and most of which are not based on any type of fact or truth. They are just things that enter our minds. So when I'm meeting with clients and we're talking about the blocks that they have, it's all about awareness and breaking the unconscious loops. So what I always recommend, and people love doing this exercise. So it's something that anyone can do, and it's a thought audit, right? So taking 24 hours where you're really, really conscious of your thoughts. So we often just have thoughts flowing into our head and we're not even listening to them a lot of the time. So anytime you have a negative thought enter your head, so through job search, let's say, you think, oh, I'm not qualified for that, or they probably have a better candidate for that, or I don't have an experience here. Anytime you think of that, or even if you're walking by a mirror and you're like, wow, is that what I look like right now? Right. So writing that down on one half of the page, and then on the other half, challenging that. So challenging those fear-based thoughts, those limiting beliefs, those negative thoughts with facts, right? So something that comes up, one of my clients was saying, I'm lazy, right? That's like a thought. Oh, I'm lazy. That just enters our mind. I feel that way. And sometimes I think about it, and challenging that belief looks like, okay, hold on. I went to the gym at 6 in the morning and then, I accomplished this and this is what I did. And just looking at things more rationally and challenging those thoughts is so powerful, because over time you become more aware of those thoughts instead of just accepting them as truth. Right? So even talking about that early example when you're talking about the decision point to accept a role, even though, there were some limiting beliefs there, challenging the thought that, it would be too stressful to have a baby and a leadership role at the same time. Like it just can't possibly work.
Hmm.
And like realizing that where that comes from is probably growing up in a traditional household with gender norms where women didn't have leadership roles. They watched the kids and that's the full-time job, right? So it's interesting when you take time to really stop and do that thought audit. And it's really powerful over time to even reduce those negative thoughts. So that's something I'd highly recommend. It's interesting what comes up.
So the thought audit, every time you feel any sort of thought comes up that brings about stress or anxiety or any emotion, it's challenge it. Can I know for sure that that's true? If you
Yes.
can't answer that fully and say it's true, then it's probably worth challenging.
Yes. Have you seen anyone else be successful doing what you want to do? Has there been anyone that has gone into leadership development as their first HR job, right? Are there role models we can look to? Absolutely. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, seek reasons to believe or reasons to confirm the opposite of that thought. And oh my gosh, I feel like we could go into like a whole episode just on the thought audit alone. I could have used that reminder before entering this this conversation with some of the thoughts I had going on, and things come up throughout the day and there's a lot that's out of your control, and so really auditing those thoughts is super key. And I'm so happy that you shared that and that we could end on that for our listeners because I know it's going to be super helpful. And Irina, thank you so, so much. I'm going to leave in the show notes how people can get in touch with you. I know you have amazing career coaching offerings, and I really recommend people to check them out. If you found this even a little bit helpful, then please, please, please get in touch with Irina as well. And we're so glad that you are here with us. So, big thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Katrina. This was so much fun.
Like what you heard and want more? Stay connected with our community on social media using the links below. Like us on your favorite podcast provider and sign up for the Conscious Loop newsletter, where we only send you goodies with one intent: to break your unconscious loops. If you have an unconscious loop you want to break free from, let us know so we can feature that loop on the show. Info and show notes, and we'll see you next time in the Conscious Loop.